Well, hello and welcome to the On It Not In It interview series podcast. I'm your host, Todd Eppert, and today I'm joined by Dani and Flip Robison, who are the co founders and owners of Freedom Family Investments. Dani and Flip, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to kick us off with a brief background as to who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So Flip and I are husband and wife and also co-founders and owners of the Freedom family of companies. And we are based out of Centerville, Ohio, and we have 7 real estate companies. And the team always jokes. There's about 80 plus of us now. They always joke as to what business we're starting next.
Yeah, that's 7 as of the recording of this podcast. Who knows what it'll be in another week?
We'll see.
Or in the next 20 minutes, right?
That's right. Yeah. Who knows? Watch what you say.
Yeah, exactly. Watch what you say. You might give me an idea.
Right, exactly. So I'm going to start off with a statement that I would consider you guys what I call serial entrepreneurs. It's not one business or two, it's 7 already, right? You have a bunch of different entities. But I'm going to take you back in time and think about, well, why did you do it in the first place? So what inspired you to start a business and jump into the entrepreneurial world instead of do what I would call the W-2 business world?
Yeah, so I thought really hard about this whenever it's asked because sometimes, it's a little hard to remember back then, right? You can remember, things that are very, very close to where you are, but it's hard to go all the way back in time. And I just remember working out of our house, and I pull it down to freedom, I think, and I think that's why it's a core message of our companies and everything that we do is centered around freedom. I just always had this gut instinct and knowingness that I was not meant to work for somebody else, and I was meant to build and create something of my own. But I wouldn't have put it in those words way back then. I think back then I was just searching for a piece of freedom that I didn't have to report to somebody else. And at that point in time, didn't even realize that I'm going to work twice, 3, 4, 5 times as hard for myself than I would for somebody else. So that freedom kind of is elusive for quite a bit of the journey.
Yeah, great comment. Flip, any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, because she jokes about she can't remember back that far or whatever. I can. And we're both musicians by trade. So actually we've been entrepreneurs since we've been yay high, being musicians and always working for ourselves. So when it came time, when it came to point where we're like, oh wow, do we need to look for a job, before we got into real estate? And I think we both dipped our toe into that water, and we both went, no, that's not, nope, no, we're not, no. And that's when we went in, full on into real estate. So because it's natural for us, where we've always, as musicians, way back when, we were always working for ourselves, and then once we get into being entrepreneurs and we saw that, wow, the harder we work, the more we make, it was like, yeah, we were in, absolutely.
Yeah, so I find it interesting, and I've done a number of these podcasts already. I feel like entrepreneurial spirit is born out of a lot of different things. Some of us, like me, tried the W-2 world for 20 plus years and realized, all that safety and security really doesn't exist. I'm going to go do this on my own, right? Other people are born into it. They come from family companies, they were raised by entrepreneurs. You guys just kind of started right into the entrepreneurial world and just kept it going. So very, very great. I love that story. Thanks for sharing that. So just thinking about all those entities that you're running today. I don't care if you want to think about all 7 at the same time or one specifically, but what are some misconceptions about running a business? I think Dani, you already kind of cued us into. I never realized I was going to work 3 to 4 times harder for myself. What's another misconception you had about running a business? And then how have you dealt with those misconceptions?
Yeah, so I think the first one is the most common, and you probably hear it a lot, and then that is work-life balance.
Mhm.
And I simply, I think for a long time we were trying to achieve it. Like we are trying to figure out how do we get to this work-life balance, only to sort of figure out that everybody has to define what that is for themselves. And for some people, I mean, you watch, YouTube videos with Alex and his wife, Hermosi, and they will tell you that they live, eat, and breathe business. They love it. There is no like separation of it because they have such great passion about it that they don't try to on purpose go, let's stop talking about work. Where Flip and I did at some point in time. We were trying to put down our phones. We were trying to just have a personal conversation, when in reality, we have personal conversations all the time throughout the day, in our day-to-day life, as we're going to the grocery store or cooking dinner. It happens, and we were trying to force a separation of it, which caused us more stress, instead of just saying, hey, if we just like the way that things are going, if we're just okay talking about business at dinner, and sometimes in the middle of the afternoon saying we want to stop working and we're going to drive down to Disney World, for a couple hours and just spend some personal time because we're just tired. Like, if we're okay with just doing what feels right, then that is our balance. So I think that's number one for me.
Yeah, I remember there was actually one point when I put my foot down. I said, all right, no talking about work until after I've had one cup of coffee. And that lasted maybe like 30 days. I don't even know how long that lasted. And the other joke is it's true though. We always joke about business dinners. Every dinner is business dinner for us. So we go to eat. Guess what? We're talking about business. We're talking about business when we eat at home. So it is that the work-life balance. And I think one of the other thing is people are, when we first started this, so a lot of our friends and family were like, all you guys do is work, and work is a 4-letter word to them, but to us, it was like, yeah, we love it.
Yeah.
This is I feel better working than I do not working. And when I'm not working, I'm anxious because I'm not working,
Mhm.
and so that was also a big change, especially around family.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you want to jump in at all, Todd, but I do have a couple other ones that I think are really important to us. I just know work-life balance is just one of those things that was a big misconception starting out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I appreciate those thoughts, and yeah, you already shared with us in the beginning that you guys are not only married, you live together, and you run businesses together. So separating that is really, you have a family business, right? Even, and I don't know if you have any other family members involved in the business yet or plan to, but because the two of you are family, you have a family business, right?
That's right.
It's really hard to split your life away when you work, live, eat, and breathe together, and you work together, right? And it's really hard. So I appreciate you sharing that. What other thoughts did you have, Danny?
So there's two things that kind of go together. And one of it is that it's difficult to work with your spouse. And this is a question that we get a lot of times, is how do you guys work together without killing each other? So that's one. And I'm going to mix it with another one about partnerships. And I think there's a misconception that when you enter into partnerships, you think that it's going to partly mitigate risk and it's going to reduce your workload. And I think all of that is kind of combined because you're working with another person. You're not by yourself, only trusting yourself. And so to tackle both of them at the same time, Flip and I, and with other partners, we had to get really good at defining what our own lane was, and divide and conquering, because it was very easy for us to assume the other person was handling something when we had a conversation. And in reality, we both thought each other was doing it. And so we had to really say, hey, Flip, you're in charge of acquisitions. Danny, you're in charge of raising capital. And so we always knew when we were having conversation, if it had to do with real estate and acquisitions, it was in his court. If it had to do with raising capital, then it was in my court. And it just got the communication clear, which really helped us grow our team, because we understood how important it was to be very clear about, you're doing this, or you're doing this, what's the accountability date, things like that. But when it comes to partnerships, fortunately for us, we actually have a happy marriage. And so therefore, we have a happy business and a happy, healthy partnership. But we've had other partners come in, and they haven't gone so well. We thought it would reduce risk. We thought it would reduce the workload. And instead, there was also this lack of communication up front of what those expectations were of each partner and what we wanted to have off of our plate. We just felt like, okay, I thought you were going to do that. No, I thought you were going to do that. Okay. And then you end up going along down this road for maybe months at a time, only to figure out that it's not going to work out. And you just couldn't figure things out. Fortunately for us, every single time that happened, it was a very clean and amicable breakup. But it was just frustrating to lose that much time. And so we've really learned that, just like marriage, you should date first. And then after you've dated for a little bit, you work out all those kinks and really understand if it's going to be a long-lasting relationship or not, because it's really hard to know what you don't know at the very beginning.
I love those stories. Great point, great points. And the one that I want to key on is it's hard to work with your spouse, right? You do have to section things out so that you can protect your marriage while you're working together, right? You don't want to blend anything that's happening at home into the frustration at work, and you just certainly don't want to bring any frustrations at work back into your marriage, right? So it is really important to. Sounds like you guys have done a good job of splitting those spaces pretty well, even though you spend a lot of business dinners together. I'll share a quick story. When I was a COO, before I was an entrepreneur, I still remember I was working from home one day and I had a really difficult conversation with somebody. And I walked out of my office and my wife was standing there and she was white. I mean, blood, just like panicked. And she goes, I am so glad I don't work for you. so, so we knew when I became an entrepreneur, she was probably not going to work for me in my business.
And that's one of those things where it's good to date beforehand or know those answers beforehand before you dive in, right? Because it could cause problems. I think for Flip and I, and you can speak to this if you want, we've just learned it's okay. It's okay to blur the lines because we are married and we are business partners, and it is what it is. And sometimes when business is hard, you do have really long nights, teary nights, screaming nights, frustrated nights, and you go to bed not happy. And we just learned to love each other through the process and just said, hey, we are husband and wife, but we also have to understand we are running a business together, and it's okay that the lines get blurred sometimes. And we just continue to push through and continue to communicate with each other.
Yeah, it's almost like we don't have kids, we have dogs. Yeah, we have 4 dogs. So it's like our company, our company's now 7. Those are our children, and so it's I can't say anything about raising a child because I've not done that personally, but I've raised 7 businesses, which are like there are children, and so there are those nights and those times, and but there's also on the exact opposite those amazing times that we can't stop smiling and we're cheering and we're jumping up for joy. So there's they balance out. It's just you always think about the hard times first, but there's lots of good times.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, really appreciate you guys sharing that. I think you guys do provide a unique perspective that a lot of our listeners will get a ton of value out of. So thanks for sharing all those thoughts. So I will pivot slightly because I know we talked a little bit beforehand. You're sitting in Orlando, Florida, and your businesses are sitting in Centerville, Ohio. So tell us a little bit about what are your strategies to maintain? How do you run businesses that are 1,500 miles away?
Yeah, that's great. Do you want to start off with this?
Yeah, well, how do we do it? Well, thank you, COVID. If there's one thing good that came out of that whole mess, it taught everybody how to work virtually. And I mean, we were up in Ohio. We lived up in Ohio when we started the company, so we started them all prior to moving from Ohio, and then because of COVID, a lot of people went virtual. But even at the point of COVID, we have almost 80 team members now. Almost half of them, or more than half, yes, way more than half, are virtual. And they're either virtual in the United States or they're virtual in the Philippines. So it's our company is run very smoothly. I mean, we do have boots on the ground in the positions that we need to have boots on the ground. There's a whole long history about Dani and I, about how we met, and she worked at Disney, I worked at Disney, not at the same time. There's a whole story there. But we love Florida. And we knew that we wanted to move back to Florida, and so it got to the point where we could, get up and move to Florida, and so we did, and then we find out a little bit after we moved to Florida that, oh hey, we still need to run everything because that situation didn't work out, but it was very seamless. We just stepped right back in, and we still run the companies like we would as if we were in the office in Ohio. It's just we're just in our office here in Florida, which is much nicer in the winter than it is in Ohio during the winter. So but because of everyone learning how to work virtually, it made it very easy for us to do this.
And I'll tag on to that it's really because of the team, right? You don't build 7 companies without a really strong team. And we've had hiring and firing is the hardest part of building a business. Finding the right people, putting them in the right seat, managing, having a good culture. That is so difficult, and not something that you really anticipate being that hard when you start out. So we've been really, really blessed with a fantastic team, who really cares about the companies. And so having people that are boots on the ground when we're not there, that we can trust that what they say is true, is critical, because there have been times where we have flown out and they've said a property is done. He does a little quick secret shopping trip and the properties are not done. So that's the risk, right, of managing from afar, especially in the real estate business. So like Flip had said, I'm not sure if he said it before we started recording or not, but we have a 15,000 square foot office. So we do have a lot of people there in Centerville, Ohio. And so we've got enough people to mitigate the risk of not getting, the actual reality. Because if you've ever been in real estate, you know that contractors will very commonly tell you that they have finished a property. And when they tell you that, they might have taken pictures of a different house and not even yours. Or they might have taken a picture of a corner of your house that they finished, but the rest of the house is still gutted. So it's, those things are just, you have to learn how to navigate them.
We
So,
laugh about those things
yeah,
now.
yeah. It's all a part of business.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Appreciate that. I did not know that's what contractors do. I know the contractors are difficult, but I didn't know they took pictures of wrong houses. That's kind of crazy.
That's just one of many things.
On purpose, even.
Yes.
It's pretty horrible.
Yes.
Wow.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yes. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, you just mentioned the pandemic and what the benefit of that was. I think most of us would say, yeah, if you made it through it, you made some adaptation, which probably made your business better in the long run. And made it better for employees and everybody else working in it. But the world is constantly changing. I mean, there's things that we are always pivoting and adapting to, maybe not as big as a pandemic, but there's always something. So what are your strategies to stay adaptable and innovative in your business model?
It really is what you just said. It's being prepared to change and shift at any given moment. It's not easy to shift 80 people in 7 companies. But if you stay on top of the market, stay on top of trends, know and understand what's going on. We're in many masterminds. We believe in surrounding ourselves with people who have done what we have done, who are at the level or higher than we are, so that we can learn and grow and stay on top of what's going on and what's working and what's not working. And then bringing your team into that. So that's not just for us. It's for us to then communicate to the team and let them know what's going on, so that their eyes and ears are open to what may be coming. In fact, as the markets have started to shift, we're starting to sell our portfolio and increase wholesaling. And so we will be very, very picky about what deals we bring into our portfolio here for the next maybe year or so, as we see the market change. So it's really just about having a great team that is okay with the pivots, because it's hard. Change is hard for everybody. And so when you're used to doing something one way, in fact, the last month of July, just this last July, we did a really hard pivot. And it's because I have got some really, really big goals. I read this book, 10X is Easier Than 2X, because I love Dr. Benjamin Hardy and everything that he writes. And I can't remember, Dan Sullivan. So I just love their book series. And so I was like, guys, I know that we already have 7 businesses, but I'm still looking to go bigger. I'm still looking to grow. So what do you guys think about this? They got excited about it. And I said, okay, in order to do this, here's what we got to do. And so we took 4 weeks, and it was 2 weeks of them going, oh my gosh,
what are we doing?
But just today on our core leader meeting, our COO said, hey, how's everybody doing? It's now 4 weeks into the pivots. How's it feeling? And everybody's like, oh man, we're fixing things faster. We're communicating better. And so I think it really is, again, it speaks to the team and just being ready to adapt and change depending on what's going on. And I think truly that's the only way for a business to survive.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And what I think I would capture a couple things there. One is the team, but you've also had to, like, you have to make pivot points. And so that's what you're talking about, is you're just actually intentionally making pivots. And
right.
And I'll pick on the one that you said, the thing that you're saying, hey, I want to go 10X. So that freaks people out. Oh, by the way, people love change until it happens to them. By the way,
right.
That's a great adage. So without revealing any secrets of those plans or any, anything that you don't want to share publicly, what can you tell us about the next chapter of your entrepreneurial journey? Have you thought about that, or what are you thinking about?
Yeah, so I shared a little bit of it. We're scaling down. So we're a turnkey company, and that's why we brought so many arms in house so we can be vertically integrated to control every piece. So we have acquisitions and renovations, property management, our brokerage. Then we build a fund and syndication company and a hard money lending company. All of these companies really work together. As the market starts to shift, there's some properties we decided to hold, so we refinance those. There's some properties that are just now finishing up rehab. We've just decided to stop buying volume in-house. We've decided to start cherry picking. So when we say 10x, it is very much understanding there's a 3-book series by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and one of them includes the gap in the gain and also who not how. And I would say our team is strong because of who not how. We hire the who's and we don't tell them the how. So we say, here is our vision. We hired you because you're the expert in this area. You figure out the how. And we are just going to, have these meetings and, figure out and navigate that path together. The gap in the gain is very much about looking at where you've been and celebrating your progress instead of being frustrated that you haven't hit your goal yet. And so when we did everybody's really finishing the book right now, 10x is easier than 2x. When we talked about this 10x goal, the way we were able to make it not scary was because we said, we're going to call this the moon. And so this 10x goal is the moon, and we're going to operate from a gap and gain principles, meaning we are simply going to celebrate that we lifted off the ground, that rocket lifted. And, we got, this far. And next quarter, we're going to see how much farther we get. But we're not going to be frustrated by property management goals of, say, 10,000 more doors in 12 months or getting to $5 million a month in our wholesaling company in 3 different markets. Those are some of the things that we have set. Our marketing company is going to start not only serving us, but serving other investors and other companies in the central Ohio area. So we set these really, really big goals only so that we all had clarity of vision. And that's really what 10x is easier than 2x brought to us, is not to scare us, but to say, hey, we can have clarity of vision and it can be way up here. And we're going to operate from the gain and understand and celebrate how far we get. And it allows us to think differently, which is the whole premise of that book, is that it's much harder to get to 10,000 doors, or let me say, it's not much harder. It's as hard to get to 2,000 doors in 12 months as it is to get to 10,000 doors in 12 months. You just think differently in order to get to 10,000 more doors. And so you have to figure out, how do I get there? And there's usually 1, maybe 2 paths to get to 10,000, where there was maybe 100 to get to 2,000. So you throw out the 98 and then you go, this is the one that's actually going to get us where we want to go. And we're going to, work about the same. So like our team just was like, it was just eyes wide open. Oh my goodness. Okay. We're all spending thinking time to figure out, what do those paths look like for us to go bigger?
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Did you have something to add, Flip? You opened your mouth.
No, it's this last, the last 6 weeks have just been, I can't even tell you the way that our company was in June compared to the way the company is today is just, it's amazing the difference. And I mean, you couldn't tell everyone in June, hey, listen, by the middle of August, this is what you're going to look like, and this is how you're going to be thinking. They'd be like, no, it's hard to explain to them, but they took it and they ran with the ball, and it's just it's great. It's great to see, and it's great to hear.
It's amazing what you're capable of if you just try.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So one final question for you guys. What's the one piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe somebody that's a little stuck right now and needs to get restarted? What's the one piece of advice you'd share?
I have an idea. Do you want to share anything before I do?
Go ahead. We get this question a lot. Mine's the same one every time.
Start with yours.
I remember where I was sitting. It was in our house in Texas, probably 16 years ago now. Where I was when I read it was 3 Feet from Gold, but it's in the I lost this.
Napoleon Hill.
Yes, Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I read the 3 Feet from Gold. I mean, I just read that story over and over and over again before I even read the rest of the book, because it hit me so hard. And and I mean, we've always had we're gonna go and we're gonna fight and we're not gonna stop. We've the never give up attitude. But the 3 feet from gold has been something that is been just a part of me ever since I read that story. And so, when people say, "What do you give?" What piece of advice is, don't stop, never stop, because you might be this close, and tomorrow you wake up and you're like, I can't do it, I'm going to quit. But if you would have just went an hour more, you would have done this or whatever. And so I that's mine. Just never stop.
Yeah, you're always so that you're always that close to a breakthrough if you just keep on going. So there was actually one more thing that I thought of. Well, so I'm going to give you 2 quick ones. The very first one is going back to that pivoting concept. It's very hard for businesses to succeed, especially now with everything moving so fast. If you don't jump on the train of whatever is working and pivot and navigate your way to be able to keep up with the, where the world is headed right now. So one of the things right now where the market is going, I talked about what we're doing as a company and how we're fixing it. The other thing that we did was we created liquidity investments. And the reason that this is important is because it's really hard to invest money into something that you can access your cash, very, very easily, but still get a good return, still beat inflation. And there's so much fear and uncertainty in the market right now that we had to go, it's stalling, real estate, it's stalling, investments. Like there's so much stalling. And why is it stalling? It's because people get scared. And when they get scared, they're not exactly sure what to do. And if that's happening to you right now in your business, and I'm going to bet many of your listeners, it's happening to you right now in your business, because every mastermind that we're in, it's happening to everybody. And so we were talking to everybody and we were saying, okay, what is it about this market? What's going on? And it came down to fear and uncertainty. We said, okay, what can we do to navigate that fear and uncertainty and disrupt those feelings? Because in all reality, if you look at the markets and the economy historically over the years, like there's always these dips. It happens all the time, but that doesn't mean it doesn't cause some anxiety for the people when you're in the middle of them. But if you look at it, you allow your logic to go, oh, okay, if I just don't get too emotional and don't get too crazy, then things are going to come back up and I'm actually going to win in the end, as opposed to the people who get really super emotional. So this liquid, it's called the liquidity fund. This idea came from, hey, let's give them the opportunity to be able to invest long-term and still have the opportunity to get their cash out if they want it. And that served both purposes to conquer the fear and uncertainty. So if you're not adapting and pivoting and thinking of those ideas in your business right now, it is possible that you will fail. And you do have the everything is inside of you. It's in your brain. All you have to do is spend the thinking time to be able to get there. And then the last thing that I'll say, if you're struggling, is an exercise that my team is doing right now, and we're going to start doing every single quarter. And that is taking a piece of paper and just dividing it in half. And on one side, writing down all the things that you don't like to do and you're not good at. And then on the other side, writing down all the things that you like to do and that you're really good at. And usually the things that you like to do and you're really good at, that's where your business should be centered around. And a lot of people go down the path of, hey, I happen to be good at this, but I don't really, I don't love it. And it's that lack of love that is the lack of commitment, the lack of passion, the lack of purpose. But if they just look and see what I'm naturally good at, that's probably your gift and where you're going to excel like crazy. So in a time where you're stuck and stale, it could be kind of your gut instincts going, hey, take a step back and just look at where you're at. Do you like where you're at? Do you like what you're doing? Or should there be a pivot right now based on the economy or just based on you in general? I think it's just important to have those evaluations throughout life.
Yeah, great thoughts. Thank you so much for sharing that advice. I think my term would be, if you're working outside your areas of excellence, you might be working in a job instead of what you're passionate about, which is what leads to the need for work-life balance, right? And so go back to what you guys started with. You don't need it because you got it and you work together and you're good with it and you love what you're doing. So, well, hey, I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Thanks, Dani. Thanks, Flip. Really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing about your business and teaching us a little about what you guys are doing. Love to hear it. Love to hear about your entrepreneurial journey. And to everyone watching and listening, I look forward to seeing and hearing from you on our next episode. Thanks again, Flip and Dani.
Thank you.
Bye.